David Gaylord's path to building Bushbalm might be one of the most unexpected founder stories in modern beauty. He started his career inside Shopify, literally at the center of the D2C universe, where the culture encouraged every employee to launch a store. That's how Bushbalm was born, a side project during a Shopify build-a-business competition that slowly turned into a 8-figure, profitable skincare brand focused on solving one very real problem: bikini line irritation and ingrown hairs. In this episode, David shares what he learned bringing a cheeky brand name to a serious scale, how running monthly business reviews at 3 employees built operational discipline from day one, the evolution from D2C to Ulta Beauty, Amazon, and a booming pro channel now serving 16,000 waxing salons, why Bushbalm treats D2C as a loss leader for awareness while building profit engines in retail and wholesale, and what profitability really looks like when you're bootstrapped, capital efficient, and building a long-term brand in beauty. Welcome to In the Money, an exploration of whether you can still make money in D2C and CPG. We talk to some of the most interesting $5 million to $50 million founders, operators, investors, and acquirers in the space to ultimately answer the question, is D2C and CPG still a good business? Hope you'll enjoy the show. David, you're one of the few, it seems like, that started at the Shopify mothership and left and now run a successful consumer brand. What did coming from Shopify teach you about launching and running Bushbalm?
Yeah, in the early days of Shopify, it was quite interesting. The culture, it was all about being a merchant, was everything they wanted every employee to be. And obviously, everyone took a different level of it, right? Everyone would try a drop shipping store or something small. So what it led to is like not many people grew the business through that because maybe they had other things and it wasn't a focus. Whereas kind of our story, we did start small and it took 3-4 years to really hit our stride. And we quit Shopify to run Bushbalm. I believe it was late 2021. So it was a good 5 years of running as a side hustle before we got there.
No way. I never knew this about Shopify, which I'm now a little bit embarrassed about. They carved the Google 20% time to tell everyone to run their own merchant stores?
Yeah, essentially. And the thing was how could you be a good developer or a good copywriter if you didn't know how the platform works? You really should be kind of dialed in there. So yeah, they wanted everyone. And remember the Richard Branson Build a Business competition they did back in the day? So they did that publicly. It was amazing success. And then internally at Shopify, they ran a Build a Business competition. And that's actually how Bushbalm started, was through this competition. And we didn't win. I don't think we had a sale during the 3-month period. But long term, it's obviously been great.
How do you think you thought about Bushbalm differently being inside that ecosystem, especially for 5 years, thus your other consumer brand peers that, obviously weren't inside Shopify?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people think oh, you worked at Shopify, you had this huge advantage. And there's yes and no in many ways. So from how to run the business, from a marketing perspective, how to find product market fit, absolutely not. It was honestly Shopify was often a distraction because people would be oh, here's a good category. You should do that. You should do this. There was really no clarity. But it did help a lot, though. I worked with an amazing boss. I kind of found myself more in the operations field at Shopify, business operations. So I worked with my last role, I was with the COO, and he's an awesome guy. But he was amazing at how to run a company, how to run culture, how to run teams, the monthly business reviews, quarterly business reviews, what's your weekly meeting look like? What data do you need? That really helped Bushbalm. And we were running QBRs and MBRs when we were 3 employees and really sophisticated, really intense. So that was a huge help. And then, yeah, on the Shopify side, it's kind of a different world, but at Shopify, I went to school for marketing and I just found myself in this really corporate role. So I had this gap in my life where I really wanted to do marketing. So I loved it, I went to school for it. And my job at Shopify, I didn't get that. So if I did marketing at Shopify, I might have not had that urge. So I probably wouldn't have gotten involved in Bushbalm. So it's just kind of a life thing that made me want to work every evening on this side hustle because I was cool. I was learning. It was super fun. So yeah, that's just maybe a nuance there.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Last time we chatted, I was wow, David is one of the most dialed operators that I've come across. So hopefully that will kind of come out in this call. We're going to dive into kind of some of the more tactical pieces of consumer brands. I think somewhere maybe to start with is when operators think about creams and serums, they think high margin. That's certainly kind of what we've seen. What's something that you've learned about margins, either from when you guys were first thinking about this or as you've grown, pricing, COGS, packaging, MOQ? Let's talk about margins.
Yeah. So, not to say we were lucky, but well, I don't come from beauty at all. My family business sells hardwood flooring. So it's like a margin profile. So I kind of understood that at like a young age. And my dad didn't have great margins. So what he did to combat that was he actually took out the distributors. So then he had better margins and it all kind of worked. But in beauty, what we were lucky when we started, I think our first initial run was 100 bottles. And the brand's called Bushbalm, but we launched an oil because a balm was like it's too scientific when we were so small. So we did it all ourselves. Like we bought a liquid filling machine. We kind of made our formulas and we took a very conservative lens. But now in our current manufacturing process, like typically the minimum order is about 10,000 units. So like we would have had to raise a good amount of money and actually do it. So we took this risk by making it ourselves and kind of starting really small. But yeah, I would say the number one thing, there was one year, we've only raised our prices once at Bushbalm. And it was in the first year, we went from, I think it was $19 to 36. And we've never raised our prices since. We've been like in this sweet spot. We think it's great. But most people, I think, will give themselves poor margins and not actually understand like what's industry standard. So that's usually the place to start.
Bushbalm and the Costco hot dog, both anti-inflationary and keeping their prices steady. You started D2C, you've now expanded into retail and pro. How did you decide on kind of the sequencing and expansion?
Yeah, so some of it came out of necessity, I would say, at different times. So D2C was great, and up until about 2021, it was just on fire, and we were no employees, growing crazy, and then we started to hire and grow, quit our jobs. And then at one point, we thought, okay, Amazon seems like the smart play, pretty lightweight. We found an agency that really helped. So that was really quick, actually, and pretty seamless. Then the next one was kind of right place at the right time with Ulta Beauty. So we got introduced, and I suspect at the time, the hair removal category, the buyer was told, hey, this category is stale and outdated. Like, can you change that? And then we were just inserted perfectly. So that worked out really well, but it was a massive endeavor from the first PO, how much it costs. And then the pro channel you described, so we sell to waxing salons. So we just passed 16,000 active accounts. So they're ordering from us kind of on a regular basis. And that channel, how that worked was we had no employees when we did that. And every week, probably 3, 4, 5 times, it started to be constant, daily. I would get an email, an Instagram message. It would say, hey, do you have a wholesale program? Like, how can I buy wholesale? So one weekend, that was when we created this new Bushbalm Pro wholesale website. And then we would just say, absolutely, we've got a wholesale program, go here. So we started to do that. It was constant. And then I think it was about 2022 or 3, we looked and we had like 700 accounts. And we were like, holy crap, we only have like 4 employees total. So that was the moment that we were like, wow, this is a very lightweight channel that we can really scale. And then we started to put more effort into that more intentionally on like how to grow it.
The following message is brought to you by Fulfill, a sponsor of the podcast. Every dollar sitting in slow-moving inventory is a dollar you can't use to scale. Most e-commerce brands have 30 to 40% of their working capital tied up in the wrong SKUs, and they don't even realize it. Fulfill.io changes that. It's an ARP built for Shopify brands that want full visibility into their inventory and cash flow. With Fulfill, you can see days of inventory on hand by SKU, forecast reorders based on actual sell-through, automate purchase orders, and thanks to native 3PL integrations, you'll know exactly what's sitting in your warehouse, not just what Shopify thinks you have. This is real-time inventory intelligence that helps you stop overstocking losers and start compounding cash in the right places. Brands like Grüns, Monos, Mujuri, and Caraway use Fulfill to free up hundreds of thousands in working capital. Don't let your inventory decisions kill your margin. Get clarity, get control at fulfill.io. Just to go back one step, Did you get some pretty strong COVID tailwinds through that 2020-21 period? And I guess the question behind the question is, if COVID didn't happen, do you think that David would still be at Shopify?
Yeah, COVID was actually really fun. I was at Shopify during peak COVID. We did a lot of cool projects. Like I was on the team that moved Shopify fully remote as like the strategy behind it. It was super fun and cool. But yeah, we had huge tailwinds. So I think that year we went from 1.8 million the year before to 8.3. So that was like huge tailwinds. We landed Alta, like everything kind of worked off that. And I said it earlier, like we were super smart, right? Where we like did Alta, we did this. But like we also launched with like Indigo, Urban Outfitters, and Whole Foods, and we added all these kind of micro like retailers, and a lot of them we like discontinued because the fit didn't really make sense. So we weren't fully perfectly intentional. But yeah, we had a huge tailwind from D2C, and then I think a lot of people felt it. Like 2022 was a really hard year, like challenging Facebook advertising, everything there, and we hit really nicely in 2023 with Alta. And then that was when we started to basically, because of the downfalls of D2C after COVID 2022, we actually focused way more on the pro channel, which now seems like just an incredible decision. But it was really hey, let's hedge our bets here and take a little risk out.
Given that you had that big boom, a lot of brands also then had the COVID come down, which didn't sound like, you said 2022 was a hard year, but it didn't sound like you had this massive come down, which what I really read in that is, you have a really good product that customers come back for and you kind of found that product market fit. So maybe my question is like, could you have, if you knew that the economics are ultimately going to be there, could you have accelerated that earlier in 2018, 2019?
Oh, yeah. Incredible. Like, you not to discredit some of the brands that like really grew in 2016, but like if we had everything where we were now back in 2016, 2017, like if you had the structures and the systems and the people, like for sure you could get to like 50, 100 million with a pretty simple playbook, right? Like the Facebook ad playbook and scaling it. It's just really hard now. I think that world has changed. And being omnichannel is obviously a big play. But yeah, if I could go back to when we had 0 employees and we did 8.3 million, like we could easily have done 2025 with a few more employees and kind of the right systems.
And just to kind of stick with this theme for a minute, because I think in pre-recording we were talking about like that median Shopify merchant, and that it's not always easy. You might be doing 1, 2, 3 million of revenue, but like there's not much operating income. Maybe you got a couple of employees. Maybe you don't have as good of a margin as Bushbalm. You're kind of in this tricky zone, like, and you're 5 years in, right? What's your advice to them? Are you like, hey, keep grinding. You just need that like lucky strike when you're going to jump from 1.8 to 8.3? Or is it like, look, if you don't have signal 5 years in, maybe it's worth starting again and try to see if you can find PMF starting from scratch?
Yeah, I guess the hard part I find, and I wasn't this way either. Every year at Bushbalm, I've gotten more conviction that our total addressable market is bigger. And when we started, I wasn't like, oh, hair removal is a huge category. That's amazing. I should be in that category. But it is one of those things that you might need to start there. And I find not enough people like look themselves in the mirror and say, hey, is this category big enough to be able to grow appropriately at the right place, right size? And the other side of it now is, are you in the right place for your consumer? And online is a great option. It's a great place. It's still, I think it's 16 or 18% of all retail sales. So yeah, your customer might be somewhere else. And I honestly think it is finding that niche community where you fit the best is like the place to start, which is honestly a lot of manual, like in person, like truly finding them and who they are. And for us, we went to an Etsy show, which is like a weird, I don't think they do them anymore, but it was like a homemade, and that show was the show that we found out how to talk about our product because we were there for 3 days selling and trying to sell. And we realized like a lot of the verbiage we use on our website and our ads didn't work. And that show led us to truly find like the right wording. And then all of a sudden that was the year we really turned it around.
To go back to the channels, then, how do you think about margin, contribution margin now between different channels and maybe even down to the SKU level? The matrix is probably only getting more complicated.
Yeah, that's the hard part is like a small brand, right? You typically have one or two channels and you're really focused. We kind of have four, right? D2C, Amazon, Ulta, well, Ulta and Shoppers Drug Mart now, and then the pro channel. And yeah, how we see D2C as an example is it's a loss leader for us. And eventually, perhaps it's a channel that we want to make profitable, but it ends up being this channel that we get to grow the brand awareness. And that leads actually to a good amount of new pros and estheticians. We've kind of seen that flywheel, as well as it leads to a lot of Amazon sales, a lot of Ulta sales. So really just growing the brand has been a big piece of D2C. And if we can get close to break even, that's like an amazing month, quarter, whatever it is. Amazon, we don't talk about ever, like in any aspect of Bushbalm. However, it's been an amazing replenishment channel. We actually have like thousands of people on subscription at Amazon, which has kind of shocked us. And then Ulta Beauty, in beauty, it's like you do need like an anchor retailer that really helps kind of on that foot traffic, and they've been a great partner for us. So we've just focused on them, and the last 2 years we've really said no to a lot of other retailers just to stay kind of focused there. But yeah, retail and then our pro channel have awesome margins because the shipping percentage of revenue is way lower. Our cost to do marketing is substantially lower. And then if you think about an Ulta compared to a D2C customer, Ulta is 100% retention, right? I'm sure they could churn at some point, but like if our sales are good, our sales are good. But I mean like us to Ulta, it's 100% year-over-year retention. We're adding doors, it's growing. And then the professional as well, as soon as we get in their back bar or their wax, the retention is basically 100%. Like it really is super strong. So after 2-3 years, the profitability is so strong there. So we kind of are growing the brand, but then also really taking advantage on the retail front where the margin is now.
That's so interesting that you're taking Shopify as a loss leader. And when you do your marketing mix, is it still, hey, we'll spend most of the marketing on Meta or ancillary channels to drive into Shopify, and then for the people that aren't checking out on Shopify, they'll go to Ulta, or they may be Pro, or they may be Amazon? Or is it like you're sprinkling dedicated kind of channel specific dollars?
Yeah, we do mostly channel specific dollars. And what we're finding every year, the Bushbalm long term, where we're like a desirable company, is as we decrease percentage of revenue spent on marketing. And if you kind of look at us right now, we're still transitioning through this phase. And every year we've slowly spent less on D2C marketing, as an example, like a bucket. Whereas next year we're spending a lot more like actual trade dollars at Ulta. So like that's like physical signage, etagères, all these things. And then we have a lot more budget now to our pros dedicated. And long term, this is I just looked at this today. It was the last 7 days on our D2C USA site. You know, like the post-purchase survey data, it's like, where'd you hear about us? I check it like quarterly. I randomly, I'm like, oh, I should look at that. So typically it's like Instagram number one, and then like, Google, TikTok, whatever it might be. The last 7 days, it was 26% from an esthetician. And it was our number one channel.
Wow.
So the word of mouth is our long-term D2C engine, but we got to build up like the awareness everywhere. But yeah, long-term, that's how we really reduce our ad spend dollars.
Why do we love numeral? Well, here's the good, the bad, the ugly. The good is that over 2,000 e-commerce store owners just like you use them for sales tax compliance, including brands like Graza, Ridge, Gruns, and 8 Sleep. The bad is that none of us got into this to spend a ton of time on sales tax and admin, which is why Numeral is able to help you in 5 minutes or less get full coverage, deal with registrations, ongoing filings, and compliance. It just all happens in the background. And the ugly is that not a lot of store owners know that sales tax is actually personally guaranteed. Said another way, that the states could end up coming after you personally if you're not on top of it. Even being a modest $5 million store owner, you could have nexus in 20 to 30 states. Again, Numeral helps you stay compliant, and they even guarantee their work. That's why we love them. Go and check them out at numeralhq.com. And then on the LTV side, like what have been the real LTV drivers? Is it trying to fiddle with the replenishment cadence, basket expansion, and AOV fillers, or is it kind of more about net new product development?
Yeah, we've kind of struggled to navigate retention in many ways. Like this year, we've kind of found a groove, and the groove has been like our products, like a body scrub, like our ingrown hair scrub as an example. Like you go through it, and then you might buy it. And what we found is our D2C website in the US struggles a lot more on retention because people will go to Amazon's way bigger for us in the US, and then Ulta is obviously a pretty big channel. So it really eats into retention there. And then D2C Canada, less retailers, less adoption, I think, of Amazon. So our retention's been a lot higher. So that's kind of our thesis. However, across both markets, we just launched 2 years ago a limited edition program. So every 90 days, roughly, we launch a new limited edition scent in our best-selling oil and scrub. So that immediately, like this year, I think we did 5 of those. And they've been just huge hits. We don't have to spend as much marketing, and like an email blast will sell through like a ton of them. So yeah, that's been our retention play, less about like cadence and more about kind of excitement of the same thing kind of over and over again.
So it sounds like you've been pretty disciplined about product expansion. Yeah, maybe just talk us a little bit more about the thinking behind that.
Yeah, it's funny how it's like now we're like, yeah, we're so disciplined. We always do the right thing. But for an example of where like I was a naive young entrepreneur trying to navigate things, we thought we could expand to more concerns. So for us, we thought like we did ingrown hairs, dark spots, super successful. And then the trimmer we launched, huge success. So we thought, okay, we could probably do stretch marks, new category. It's in our realm, body care. That was really hard and a bit of a distraction on our line. And then we launched a body wash, and it was like a lower price point, and that ended up being another just big distraction. So we really did rein it back in, and now we've got our core 2-step routines that work really, really well. Next year, we're launching a product that'll make it a 3-step routine. So we've kind of been very diligent about expansion of the core line, but the scents allow us to just add newness, excitement for a period, which kind of reinvigorates everyone. And then there's a different strategy on the pro channel. So D2C, there's a lot of scent. Ulta Beauty just took on our scent line. Super exciting. The pro channel, we're actually going through a different strategy that's kind of meticulously chipping at one item that they need. So we just launched hard wax last year, which has been it's actually our number one SKU now. It's been amazing. And like an example, next year we're launching the like wax sticks, like popsicle sticks for waxing. We're going to launch a soft wax. And our ultimate goal is we want to become like your one-stop shop for everything pro hair removal. So that's been very strategic about like, let's chip away at this one-stop shop and do it kind of in the right way. But yeah, D2C, it's hard to have a huge collection if you're a very specific brand as well.
Being a kind of problem solution oriented business, interesting to hear that stretch marks didn't work. What were some of the learnings? Was it a different customer or
Yeah, the biggest one was we didn't continue with our scent profiles. So if we launched in our Sweet Escape scent as an example, there's a good chance it would have been successful. It might have been. We weren't great at understanding merchandising at the time. Now that we do retail, it's so much easier to be like, well, this wouldn't look good on a shelf. Like, how could you sell it online? So now we definitely focus on like expanding the scent profiles across the different categories. But yeah, it kind of just potentially strayed away. And I think what we realized is we're really good at problem solution marketing, which is a lot different than marketing many problems and solutions, right? It's not like we're like the everything store for problems. We're really like, we became, after this kind of transition, the bikini line skincare experts became our tagline, which then the concerns with that are mostly ingrown hairs and dark spots and grooming. So we narrowed the business and focused, and then our conversion rate, everything's just been much, much higher.
And then sticking with kind of learning about what sells on the retail shelf, Maybe like, what are some capital intensive moments about a beauty brand that people underestimate, and specifically in retail? Like, you're managing inventory and the working capital. I don't know if you have to develop net new tooling for the pro channel or the retail channel, the trade spend, you wrap seasonality around all of that. So yeah, just maybe learnings around the working capital complexity of a retail online pro business.
Yeah, just a very obvious one is on the pro channel. To actually have like pro back bar items is for most people like really hard because you have an MOQ as well. And typically, like to start, you're like, oh, we do 100 units every 200 days. Like, how do we see? That's a really big hurdle because you have to carry so much more inventory of something that actually goes bad in 2 to 3 years, whatever it is. So that now we're over that hurdle, which is very capital intensive. The other one that's maybe unknown or kind of missed is obviously like a new retailer, a big PO, 60-day terms, whatever. That's super scary. What's even scarier than that, and we've done it now twice, is at some point you're like, oh, our line, we learned that this product doesn't do well at retail, whether it's the packaging, the name, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, we got to take it out of retail. And that's really challenging. And we've kind of gone through that twice. We're getting better at doing that, like more strategic, but very difficult. And then the last one is probably like retail signage. And we've gone a period where we didn't do it, and then now we're bringing it back. But yeah, that's probably like $120,000 investment that you really have to pay like upfront. But it is honestly probably my favorite investment because everyone who walks in the store sees it. So it is worth it as long as you kind of see the return. It's just you can't really justify the return until you do it, which is hard.
And what have you learned working with retailers? And I don't know if it was with Ulta where you sunsetted the SKU, but like managing that relationship where you still want to have a good global relationship and ideally you don't want to pay for chargebacks. Like, how have you dealt with that dynamic?
Yeah, like Ulta's been a great partner, and a lot of it's like strategy and vision of where you're going. So they loved our growth on the scent. Like we're building out new scents and we're expanding. I think the biggest thing I've learned with retailers is like no matter what, it has to be a good partnership on both sides. So I often see it where people are like, oh, I just want to get into this retailer, and we've been there. But if it doesn't make sense, and like say the category you're in doesn't make sense, it's just going to fail for both parties long term. So I think we've been much more intentional with Ulta. We're in the hair removal category, which makes a ton of sense for us. So we've tried to be like, okay, no, we need to be in the right category with the right assortment, and let's like discuss how we can kind of get there together. Whereas, yeah, I find a lot of people are just so eager to get in that like one mistake of being in the wrong place actually can make a huge impact.
D2C founders, are you bleeding cash before your customers ever see your products? You spend months shipping items, your inventory sits idle, and your margins evaporate in logistics. What if you could slash your lead times and reclaim your cash flow? Meet Portless, the next-gen direct fulfillment platform built for high-growth e-commerce. They don't just store products, they ship directly from China and Vietnam to your customer's front door with a fully local delivery experience, skipping ports, cuttling handling, and making your inventory available for sale in days, not months. Portless offers up to 90% lower inventory lead times by removing middlemen and optimizing routes. A dramatic acceleration of cash flow because inventory is back on sale within 48 hours of manufacturing, reduced inventory risk because there's no need to overproject demand, and true global reach because you ship to 55 countries using domestic last-mile carriers. Now here's the promise. Switch to Portless and you're no longer paying for inefficiencies. Go to portless.com, get a free quote, and see how you can reinvent your supply chain. Don't let logistics throttle your brand's growth. Try Portless. Real speed, real savings, real scale. I think Bushbalm has been mostly bootstrapped. Curious, like what constraints did that impose? And what advantages did it create?
Yeah, what's great about being bootstrapped is you go a little slower. And in the early days, we went quite slow. Actually, I think it took us 3 or 4 years to get to $100,000 in sales in 1 year. So
Yeah.
very slow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we like learned a ton through that.
But moonlighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moonlighting, it was fine that way, but it was you can go slower, and it's amazing for that. However, it's hard to take risk like whatsoever. So I'd say now looking back, the thing that really took a hit would have been brand building. Like we really didn't do any brand building. We were all direct response, trying to get the sales to be profitable. But as a Bootstrap brand, what's great is that I think the period of probably 2016 to 2021 was when everyone was like, just grow at all costs and raise money and grow. Whereas we were very diligent to break even, be profitable. So that was good practice, I guess, until now. And then we took about a $1.5 million loan from BDC. And that would have been in our kind of big growth year. I think it was the right after the 8.3 million year to kind of get to the next stage. And then yeah, now we haven't raised, we're profitable. But there is a world where yeah, we might want to find a partner to kind of take us to that kind of next stage.
What did you kind of insource versus outsource kind of early days, and what would you do differently about it today?
Yeah, Bushbalm's been different than a lot of my friends I've realized in the industry or CPG is we've actually done a lot in-house and tried to, and we've kind of tried to like coach up people or like basically give responsibility to people if we think we can do it. A good example was we had an awesome co-op student on the design team. So they came in as like an intern. And at one point we were doing photo shoots and they were super painful. And you'd go back to the agency and they'd do a new one and it would be off the lighting. So we gave this responsibility to a co-op student and said, hey, do you think you could figure this out? And they did. And they did an awesome job that like saved a ton of money. It also now like our photo shoots are way better. But yeah, we try to do more in-house as much as possible from like ads. And then at some point we realized like Amazon's a good example where the expertise to hire that is just, it's very hard. So we kind of took that outsourced. But yeah, for the most part, like we still have product development in-house. Like we've defaulted to building the teams. It just usually leads to a bit of pain when you're understaffed, which always seems to happen. And also you need to hire someone who's strategic, but can also do the work, which is also very hard to do. But we did a pretty good job in the early days of figuring that out.
David, what's been the biggest single win of the last 12 months? New SKU, operational milestone, something else?
Yeah, I'd say our profitability levels have been just like a huge, and it's not even just being profitable is like the thing. It's really our business model is awesome. Like if you talked to me 2 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, we're a great company, we're growing, but our business model hadn't fully took hold of what it could be. Whereas yeah, now when you look at all the fundamentals, and I find it's like, oh, I don't know if next year will be that much. It will be that as profitable next year. That question at Bushbalm like doesn't exist. It's like, oh yeah, like this is going to happen because we've got so much retention revenue from this that profitability should go up by 3%. So we're in a good place on the business model side, and there's definitely less stress across the board. But yeah, that's probably the biggest milestone. And what it's led to is we're getting so much more interest from investors. So that they're loving our story, they're loving our model. Whereas 2 years ago, I just didn't have that feeling because people we hadn't proved it yet, essentially.
And is that you've got the scale that gives you the operating leverage for everything to flow down, and you've also got the scale of the brand awareness, and you're kind of benefiting from all of those attributes?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of that. It's more so we've navigated like the pros. So we built an incredible funnel that doesn't rely as much on paid media. So just to give the context, we're bringing on between 300 and 500 new waxing salons every week as customers. So like incredible to get that many a week that are bringing on. And then the retention on those waxing salons and the ones from 2 years ago, 3 years ago is so strong that the model just makes a ton of sense now. So yeah, we got the scale of like obviously repeat revenue, which is great, but also just the funnel we've built, it would be very hard to replicate, I would say.
Yeah, that's so incredible. It sounds like maybe it is the pro channel, but is there a kind of tactic, piece of tech that's working especially well for you right now?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. And honestly, it's one of those ones that like not as much right now. I think a lot of what we've figured out is like there's a lot of creativity that's led to a lot of successes. And just like we're in a weird phase right now, which is good and bad, where we're kind of getting back to basics as far as like SOPs for how we do merchandising. And so we're kind of less focused on all this different tech and software. But what one thing that's maybe not to go unnoticed is with the pro channel, especially, we've done a ton of CRO. So working on the flows to get new signups and creations, and it's been like a huge unlock. And with that, we've built like we do webinars now for the pros and live demos, and that's like basic software. It's not like anything fancy. I think we use Zoom, to be honest, but it's been huge. Like we'll get 1,000 waxers on a live demo, um, using it as it's a Zoom webinar kind of feature.
And who would have known that, 8 or so years ago that David would turn out to be king of wax salons?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I never what's been great actually about Bushbalm is when I started, I told you I was all about marketing. I was pumped. Like this is my way to learn marketing. And as I've grown with Bushbalm and the company's grown, I do far less marketing now. And I've become what my old boss used to be is like the mission of Bushbalm. And honestly, we have an awesome mission is one is we get to help women go to the beach and be confident in their bikini line and, walk around and be pumped. Like that's amazing. And then number two now is it's like 99.9% of our waxing salons are female entrepreneurs. So we actually get to help them with their business. And that's like the thing that's driving me right now. I'm so pumped to like help them build tools, the education, the webinars, the demos. Like it's been awesome. But yeah, I went from my growth to actually like, oh no, I get to like push this brand, which is doing good in the world essentially.
And then is the secret master plan that all these wax salons are also going to need hardwood flooring?
Yeah, potentially. No, my brother took over the family business, and yeah, that's been a cool journey to watch. They went from a local business, and now they use Shopify, and they actually sell all over the US. They're quite a national business, which is really cool.
That's amazing. David, as we head towards a wrap, is there anything that you're looking for from listeners, channel partners, collaborators, investors to accelerate your next phase of growth?
Yeah, we're currently actually getting a lot of excitement from investors, and we don't need to raise. We're profitable. Cash flow is like in a pretty good state. However, it does look like the next 2 to 3 years as we grow. I've realized our purchase orders are just so big. And to put it in context, we have a purchase order of the wax sticks, and it's like 700K for wax sticks, which is just kind of absurd. But we need them. We're going to sell so many. So yeah, we're thinking now, and as we get interest of finding the right partner, I'm sure we'll need a little bit of capital to do that, but more so to find someone that honestly takes us to, say we're at 16,000 wax salons right now. Ideally, we'd like to get to 100,000. We'd like to be international. We'd like to be across kind of different categories. So that is like something on my mind, but maybe not till the new year, essentially.
It's actually been cool. The pod's now been going for a little bit over a year. I think we've had 2 exits. One, CEO Beauty, which we did very early, and then Koyo, a footwear business. But then even in the last week, been emailing with plant people that came on the pod a few months ago, and they just raised their Series A. But yeah, for investors listening, David's just, you're so dialed in, so glad that you're able to come onto the pod. Yeah, really happy that you've been able to share the story and super pumped for your success.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been a long journey, and it's nice to be past the hump, although there's probably another hump coming. But yeah, it's been really fun, and I appreciate having me on. I'm a huge fan, especially on Twitter. You're always on my feed. It's amazing.
Well, David, thanks so much, and look forward to next time.
Awesome. Bye now.